I had a gap between the poured concrete countertop and the fire brick floor of the pizza oven. So I measured 1 inch all the way around and drew a line. You'll notice I don't have any kind of protective cover around this angle grinder. I took it off to get a better look at this line I was cutting. Probably not the best idea to do that, but I was super careful and my face was protected. Next, I went to the store and got some tile samples to show my wife. I cut up this mosaic tile and used the tiles that matched the fire brick to fill in this gap. I filled it with mortar and flattened it with this scrap piece of wood. Next, I just stuck them down with some mortar and laid some bricks on top to flatten it. Grout was the last step. Today, I built the outer entry arch with a nice big hole at the top for the flue gallery. You remember this concrete chimney mount that I made a few videos back. I sanded it smooth and rounded the edges. Turns out these screws were just a little off. Oh well. Here it is now. I took this form out after about 24 hours. I wanted it to be strong enough to hold, but workable enough to wipe out the inside of this arch. This part will be visible, so I don't want to see any globs of mortar. My wife thought this flue gallery looked a little bit too square, so once the arch hardens up a bit, I'm going to try and grind this down. There's an air gap between the outer arch and inner arch, so I filled it with caulking. I put 8 screws into the countertop. This is to attach the steel wire that will hold down the ceramic fiber blanket. I measured the circumference and rolled out the insulation on the floor. This stuff is surprisingly workable. It kind of sticks to the rough surface of the dome, and it just sort of stays in whatever position you put it in. I just wrapped it all the way around the circle, and then just make cuts wherever it bunches up. Same thing for the top. Just measure it, cut a piece, and knife it in. A couple more small pieces and I'm done. I saw someone online use this roofing tape. They put it around the base of the dome and used caulking where it met the countertop. It's a waterproofing measure, but I don't think there's much of a point. The rendering is going to go right over this. I guess it can't hurt. I should have said, make sure you use gloves when you use this fiber blanket. Goggles and a mask wouldn't hurt either. Next, I use this steel wire to tie down all of this fiber blanket. I used the last of my caulking to sort of glue together the seams. Next step is the rendering. I'll do it in 2 stages. The first stage will be an insulating vermiculite concrete mix, similar to what I used on the top of the stand. I'm using 8 parts vermiculite, 1 part hydrated lime, and 2 parts Portland cement. I mixed it all together dry before adding the water, and then I mixed it together by hand until it was the consistency of tuna salad. Wear gloves, obviously. Lime is not good for your skin. Then just mush it on there, work from the bottom up, and try to slide more than pat. This layer will be about 1.5 inches thick, and will only go up about 60 or 70% of the dome's height. For the top section, I used an extra layer of ceramic fiber blanket, so there's no need for vermiculite concrete up there. After each bucket of rendering, I went over it with a steel float. Make sure you keep this thing wet. I tried to maintain the spherical shape as best I could, but I'm kind of playing it by ear here. For the outer layer of rendering, I might try to use some kind of a homemade curved float of some kind. This was kind of fun to do. It's less calculated and more artistic, but it's super messy, and it can be annoying to fight with this fiber blanket as you try to get this rendering to stick. I really need this layer to dry for a few days before I put the outer finishing layer on. One of the guys from the community forum on Forno Bravo's website suggested I make a series of vents to allow water to find its way out of the insulation layers. So I bought some of these 3-inch vents, and this plastic cup is the perfect size to cut these holes out with. I'll have 2 of these in the front and 1 in the back. I'm going to try and use this arch form to make a door. I drilled a bunch of pilot holes and put a bunch of screws in it. I let the screws stick out through the back. Then I built forms around the outside. I cut a piece of insulation and stuck it into the form. I added some reinforcement wire and then filled it with concrete. I added a bunch of fire clay to this mix so it can handle the heat. Then I removed the forms. Once this is fully cured, I'll polish it and paint some high temperature glue around the outside. Then I'll decorate the wood side and install some kind of a handle. This was a weird idea. We'll see if it actually works. Time for the second layer of rendering. I used 5 parts sand. Make sure it's coarse, builder's, or all-purpose sand. Play sand is no good for this application. 1 part hydrated lime, and then 1 part Portland cement. Put some gloves on and mix the ingredients dry. I added the water to the bucket first, about 3 cups worth. Get the drill ready, add the mix to the water, and then mix it up for about a minute. Again, you want the consistency of a tuna salad, maybe just a little bit wetter than that. Next, just smear it on. Again, work from the bottom up. You should actually spray the whole dome with water before you start doing this. I sort of just did it as I went. It's hard for me to eyeball a perfect curve, so I measured the correct arc using the outer diameter. Then I cut it out to make a guide, which I used every so often as I went around. Let's speed this up a bit. There we have it, a wood-fired oven from scratch, with no real specific skills, just planning and a lot of internet videos. I'll put together one video that has everything, and I'll also put together a materials list and an accounting of costs. If there's interest, maybe I can put the plans on Etsy or something, but that would take me a while to put together, so let me know if that's something that people would want. Remember to cure the oven slowly, increasing the temperature by 25 to 50 degrees each day. Next year, I'll cover this whole thing in a small mosaic tile, but this is done for now. Please follow me if you like these kinds of projects. And thanks for watching.